Welcome to the Prefessional Podcast, episode number 10. Today we are going to be doing a deep dive into the War Within, talking about the news zones, the dungeons, the delves, all that kind of stuff. And then I also want to briefly touch on Diablo 4 as I've been recently playing that. So let's go ahead and we'll just jump right into it. Going to try to keep this a little bit shorter than my other ones and maybe hopefully not rant as long as I usually do. So first, let me just talk about Diablo 4. Was really skeptical of playing the game just because Diablo 3 kind of put a sour taste in my mouth. Just for clarification, I still have not actually purchased Diablo 4. I'm playing it currently on Game Pass, and so far so good. It's actually kind of enjoyable. I know it's like we're talking about a year after launch time, so obviously they've had plenty of time to like mash out all their bugs and fix little things like that. So overall leveling, I've got probably like 12 hours into the game already. I've completed all of Act 1, currently working on Act 2. So far, so good. Pretty good, pretty fun. It's pretty fun. I'll just leave it at that. I don't know what the end game is going to be like, but I am actually enjoying it. I don't think it is as good as some of the other ARPGs that I've played, but it does feel very Diablo, and it's been very enjoyable in terms of like leveling. The combat is... It's fun. It's fun. I just like it's very Blizzard-esque is the best way to put it. Especially after playing like an ARPG, like I sank a lot of time into Lost Ark, and I sank quite a bit of time into V Rising, two other ARPGs. Lost Ark was a lot of fun, and V Rising is probably one of my top tier games, like out of the past 5 years, like hands down. It's that good. Like the combat is just so satisfying. It's challenging, but everything is like telegraphed really nicely. Diablo 4 doesn't really do that very well. A lot of the ground, it's just like playing WoW. Literally, that's the best way to put it, is like there's so much stuff happening on the screen and on the ground at the same time, with like spell effects, with your own spell effects, and then with like the boss spell effects, that it's hard to see. So a lot of times I'll get hit by something and not even know what's like hitting me. So, it still suffers with that. But again, I'm only in the early stages of leveling. So I imagine the ground clutter and stuff like that doesn't change. That's just what you have to deal with. But in terms of like difficulty, I think like aside from like my last stream, the very last dungeon I did, I came close to dying. I actually had to use a health potion, and that was the first time, and I'm level 46 or 45. So overall, it's not that super challenging. But again, still early levels. I'm going to keep playing it. I'm enjoying the game. It's fun. It's just not, it's not what I feel like it should be or could be. So that's all I'm going to leave it. I will do a full down deep dive review of Diablo 4 once I get to the end game and start experiencing that some. So, to be decided. Anyway, let's jump into WoW and the War Within now. Okay. So I want to be positive. But I'm not overly impressed with the War Within. So I've been playing the beta, and I've gotten I've got quite a few hours into the beta. I hit max level. I've done a lot of the max level dungeons. I missed the raid testing, so I didn't get to do like any of the raid, which I'm a little disappointed that they didn't just leave that open, but whatever. Let me just start with the zones. Okay. So first off, let's start with the zones. The first zone, the Isle of Dorn, where you start at, is amazing. Beautiful zone. It's where you meet the main capital city. Beautiful capital. I can't say enough of that zone. I think the Isle of Dorn is a great entryway into the expansion of the War Within. It gave me the same kind of feel as Dragonflight, like when I came into it and started flying, and it's like, wow, the zones are just amazing. Like it's all beautiful and everything. But it kind of dies off from there. The remaining zones are not that great. Now, I don't know if they make any graphical improvements or not from the beta to like actual release. I don't know if like it's just like at a lower fidelity or something. I don't necessarily feel like it is, but the zones, I feel like even with more graphic fidelity, the other zones aren't that great. like even with like comparing Dragonflight, because the rest of the zones are all like in caves, right? They don't really feel like you're in a cave because they're just so massive. And I feel it's kind of, I feel like they kind of expanded too much. Like they were, Zaralek Cavern in Dragonflight was a great zone, because it was a cavern and you felt like you were in a cavern. And I feel like they didn't really transfer that over to the War Within as well. The ceiling to floor ratio just feels off, and it feels like you're in a outdoor setting, but you're not outdoors. Like, you know, you're not outdoors, and you can see you're not outdoors, but it feels outdoors. I don't know if that makes any sense or not. It's probably something that you have to feel yourself when you're in there. But that's just kind of like the vibe that I'm getting. The rest of the zones, there's only one more zone. Let me see what the name of it is. The Hollow Fall. That is the second best zone in the War Within. So there's four zones. You have the Isle of Dorn, then you go underneath the caverns into the first zone. Not impressed. Then the next zone you go to is the Hollow Fall. That one is impressive. I like that one. And then there's one more zone with the Arubians. And again, not impressed with that one at all. That's actually like the last zone you go in is actually the worst. It just does not look good at all. But the Hollow Fall looks great because that one has in the background a large crystal with like the city, and it changes. Let me see if I think I had a picture of it really quick. Because I want to bring up the picture because the picture is actually like beautiful, and I have it on my screen, right? Make sure my display's up. Yeah. So this zone, right? This zone is beautiful. Okay. This is a great way to look at it. And this huge crystal in the back, you can see that like the entire time you're playing, and it changes. So this is daytime, and when it goes nighttime, it turns purple and puts off like a purple hue. This zone is great. Looks great, feels great, and things like that. So I wanted to make a quick note of that. Let me bring my notes back up. So the zones overall, just not really impressed at all, which is disappointing. So now let me talk about the delves. Now, they don't have the delves fully unlocked for beta players. Kind of disheartening. So I can only give like a really brief, small overview. I like them initially. I think it's nice. It's a nice change up. It's like a solo dungeon run with, you know, your follower who you can level up and stuff like that. I'm fine with that. I think the delves are a great idea. I'm not, like I said, like they're so restricted right now. It's hard to give like an honest opinion on them. I don't think there is enough there to keep people interested. There's a lot of delves. Okay, there's a lot of delves, so maybe that is like an advantage. I've played through maybe 12 of them. Most of them were all different, so I will say that most of them are all different, and I think there's probably like 40 delves, maybe. That's probably a fair number. It's a lot of them. I just feel like that being another in-game kind of grind thing. I mean, I feel like delves, as long as they don't make it like a mandatory thing for like everybody, I think it's fine. I think it's much more targeted towards single players, people who aren't huge into like raiding and stuff. And for that, I think it's fine. For myself, I'm not a fan. It's not something that I want to grind through because it doesn't feel fun to me. It's like they're cool initially, and it's a fun, cool thing to do for like 1 or 2 times. But like how it's currently set up is the difficulty doesn't really change. It just scales. So like the dungeon stays the exact same and you're just running through it again, except, you know, at the higher level, the mob just hits harder, and that's kind of it. They have more damage and they have more health. So now I know they've mentioned that they want to have delves, like they're going to change like weekly, or every season. I can't remember how it exactly was worded, but they are like planning on changing it. And they said that like if you run the same delve, like it could be different depending on what changes have happened. So it might be like completely different from what you ran the first time. And if they do that, that's cool, and that'll be good. But if they don't do that, then I just don't see. I don't know. I feel like it's cool, but I feel like they've maybe sunk in too much time in it compared to like the return it has for regular players and stuff. So we'll see. It's like I said, I can't give like a full explanation of it just because we don't have it like fully unlocked. So now let me just talk about like the dungeons. So the War Within is split. There's 4 dungeons that you play while leveling. They're only available while leveling, 70 to 80. And then you have 4 more dungeons that are only available to max level players. And that's currently one that's playing up here on the screen now is a max level dungeon. I've got to say, I actually like all of the dungeons. They've been pretty enjoyable. I have a few things that I'm nitpicking on. But overall, the dungeons, I feel like in this expansion are very well done. This dungeon that's playing right now is the Dark Flame Cleft. And this is my favorite. This is the best dungeon, in my opinion, of this expansion because it relies and it has so many different mechanics inside the dungeon. My opinion, this is top tier. This is an S tier dungeon. I feel like none of the dungeons are like super terribly long either, other than maybe what was it? The Stone Vault, I think is what it was, because the Stone Vault has 4 bosses. That one's a long dungeon. And I feel like that took the longest time to go through. Probably my least favorite. You can check out all of the dungeons on my channel. Obviously, they're being released. But anyway, this is the best dungeon. The rest of them don't feel terribly long. None of the dungeons felt terribly long. I feel like they're all pretty well done. The only one I dislike is the City of Threads. I cannot stand that dungeon. That is F tier, in my opinion, and I'll say literally the reason why is because they have the Court of Stars mechanic. If you played back when whatever, and then they had that in the Dragonflight Mythic Plus rotation. The Court of Stars is the one where you have a brief period where you have to find like the imposter. So they introduced that in this dungeon as well. You have to find an imposter amongst the. This is a really cool boss, by the way. Like they create wax statues, and then once they destroyed, then there's wax on the ground. The bosses in this dungeon are literally top tier. I cannot stress enough. Dark Flame is like the best dungeon I've played since like this beats Dragonflight completely. This one dungeon, it is so great. Anyway, the crap. What was I talking about? The dungeon. The City of Threads. Jesus. The City of Threads has a find the spy mechanic. I don't know if it's just maybe buggy because of it being in the beta, so maybe it wasn't working fully correctly. That dungeon took me almost an hour to complete, specifically because of that, because there was no cues to help find the imposter. Horrible fucking dungeon. I cannot stand that kind of mechanic. The Court of Stars, I hated it. It's unnecessary. It doesn't add anything to the gameplay or the story. It's just a bad mechanic. And they introduced that again in the City of Threads. So I just wanted to point that out. That is like a major downside. But aside from that, the rest of the dungeons are great. This one is my favorite. Dawnbreaker is another one of my favorites. It's another max level dungeon. That one actually includes dragon riding in the boss battles, which is pretty fun. So, overall, dungeons in this expansion are a win, aside from the find the spy mechanic shit. That one sucks. So let me see. Other than that, what do I want to talk about? So this part here in the dungeon is actually really cool too. So you're escorting a cart, and the entire time you're escorting it, you have to run and grab candles in order to refuel it. And then these monsters attack and they try to drain the candle. So just another, again, and then this mechanic also transfers over to the final boss. You have to juggle taking a candle and staying near a candle and keeping the candle lit while you fight the boss. Really well done. This dungeon, again, I cannot stress enough. And it's on my channel. You guys can go watch it if you want. I think it's only members only right now, but it'll be public like later on. I don't know what the exact date without looking. So all right. Yeah, and then the Dawnbreaker was like the last dungeon. That was like a massive. That's where you have to do dragon riding, and you're flying from like airships, and you're dive bombing down, and a lot of fun. Dungeons are a great thing. So let me talk about tanking a little bit. Just as I want to finish up with tanking. Like I said, I wasn't able to do the raids, so I can't give an input on that. They closed the raids down for the beta, which is annoying. So I can't do anything with it. I'm not doing the main quest. I haven't paid attention to anything in the main quest because I don't want to spoil it for myself. Like none of the cutscenes are active, and things like that. So it's kind of, it's kind of a waste to try to do it. I don't want to ruin the full experience. So I've not paid attention to the main quest line. I can't give any input on that, and I'm not going to give any input on that. So I didn't even complete the main quest. I just dungeon grinded to level 80, other than going through like some of the main zones and stuff. And yeah, so let's talk about tanking for a little bit with the Blood Death Knight. Blood Death Knights feel really good. They feel really good. I like the changes that they've done to the talent system. I still feel like Blood DKs are going to be top tier. Self-healing is still through the roof, even though they've nerfed healers and they've nerfed a lot of the leeching. I have not noticed it in my character all that much. So, Blood Death Knights, the tanks, the talents are great. I like the changes. Hero talents are really, really nice. I haven't done Dawnbreaker yet. I've only played with the, I can't remember what the name of it is, and I'll probably butcher it. The Sand Raylan or whatever it's called, the S one. It adds a little bit of difference to it, but it's mostly just passive stuff. It's cool. The self-healing with that is really nice. The haste with that is really nice. I want to do the other, I can't remember what it's called, but it's more of a DPS one. I'm going to try that out soon just to kind of get a feel for that too. I want to see what the self-healing difference is compared to the damage. But hero talents are really nice. Death Knights, I feel like we got a couple extra buttons. They made a couple other stuff, relevant, like Bone Storm. And then Bone Shield. Like there's little nuances that have changed. Overall, it's a really nice change to the Blood Death Knight, in my opinion. They added a few more buttons to like the rotation and stuff, so it makes it feel better. Really cool. The final boss, you're throwing stuff. It helps deal damage to him, which helps actually, as long as you're doing really well to him here, you have less health to deal with at the final boss. So depending on how much less you do, depends on like how faster the final boss fight goes, which is really nice. Anyway, so, in Dragonflight, the Blood Death Knight rotation was really, really simple. It's basically like after your initial opener, you're just doing Blood Boil Heartstrike. Like you're just alternating between those two. And with the added talents and the hero talents, it actually does, not with the S tree, but the other Death Knight hero talents, it adds an extra button. But like just in general, regardless of what hero talents you take, you have a couple extra buttons in your rotation now, which is really, really nice. So you can see down like on my action bar, like down here is Bone Storm. Pretty much everything like stays kind of the same here, but there's a lot of different interactions now, like Abomination Limb, like Gorfine's Grasp. Like things are, you have more stuff that's working down here and more buttons that are actively in your rotation. So it's really nice. Dancing Rune Weapon is like super fast to use now due to like the constant Tombstone and Bone Shield. Like Dancing Rune Weapon never lasts 2 minutes. Like Dancing Rune Weapon is like under 60 seconds for a cooldown now almost. So super cool. But yeah, so Blood Death Knights feel pretty good. I don't know what's going on with, I think it might just be with like the scaling and stuff, but I've had a massive issue with threat. People are like just yanking threat away from me immediately. I like even getting into like even if I'm in there, Death and Decay's down, I've gotten 2 blood boils off. Like shamans and mages have like just ripped aggro from me. Like just like, I don't know if it's, I feel like it's like scaling issues more than anything in the beta. That's what I want to say it is. Because they haven't mentioned anything about threat. So I'm assuming it's all scaling, and I hope it's scaling. So I just want to leave it at that. Like aside from that, like everything feels pretty good. So this is like the final boss. So you have to, like, one person has to carry the candle around, and you just drop it, and then you have other candles that like pop up, and you have to take like the fire to the candle to keep it lit. But anyway, yeah, so tanking feels pretty good overall as a Blood Death Knight. I like the changes that they've had to it, and I'm just, threat has been like the only somewhat issue, and like I said, I just don't know if that's just because of scaling or what. So anyway, that's it for podcast episode 10. I'm gonna probably be doing I don't know when I'm gonna release this podcast actually, but keep an eye on the channel. I'm doing a couple live streams playing Diablo 4 right now, just waiting on the War Within to come out. So again, appreciate you guys. Do a favor, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you're not. I'm going to be trying to do more podcasts. I'm putting them out a lot more frequently here, and I've got all the War Within dungeons on my channel, so check them out if you want. And as soon as the War Within releases, I will be putting out guides on them all. Everything's all prepared and good to go. We're just counting things down, putting the finalization on stuff. So thank you to the subscribers, thank you to the viewers, and I'll see you in the next one.